Canning might be the most popular food preservation method, but it's also the fastest way to burn out. And in this video, I'm going to break down 5 simple alternatives to canning that you can start using right away. After years of weekends lost to boiling pots, I realized that canning is one of the quickest ways to drain your energy. So instead, I found simple methods that save me hours and still keep real food on the table without the stress. And here is why this matters. Your garden should really fit your life and not consume it. And that's been the biggest shift for me. It's also why I created a free training so that I can show you how to plan smarter, grow high-value crops, and avoid burnout. The link is right below and is totally free, so make sure to grab your spot. If you do love canning and it truly fits your life, maybe this video isn't for you. I canned for years, and I have how-to canning videos here on my channel, from tomatoes to carrots to salsa. I'm not saying that I'm never going to can again, but in this season of my life, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And the hours I spent over boiling pots, I cannot get that back, especially the precious years with my kids that seem to fly by. My whole philosophy shifted after I downsized from a huge, overwhelming garden to one that fits my life so much better. Now my focus is on eating high-quality food, maximizing my space, and doing it in the least amount of time with zero stress. When I first got into canning around 20 years ago, I was hooked. I still remember my first batch of jalapeno jam made from peppers that I grew in little containers on my deck in Michigan. It was the best jam that I have ever had, better than anything I could ever find at the store. Shortly after that, my mom signed me up for a canning class at a local organic farm, and we canned diced tomatoes. And then after that, I set a big goal to grow all of my own tomatoes for salsa, sauce, and diced tomatoes. Eventually, I did that years later in my 28 raised bed garden. Each year, we canned enough jars to last a whole year, and not just tomatoes. It was sweet corn, green beans, peppers, jams, you name it. And it was incredibly satisfying, but also incredibly overwhelming. Between the time that it took and the jars and the lids, the giant pots and the extra burners on the porch, and then storing it all, it became a monster. And honestly, it was part of the burnout that garden caused me. When I finally downsized after my divorce, one of the first things I purged was my canning setup. And that burnout is what woke me up to a much smarter strategy. Eat seasonally and use simple preservation methods that don't eat up your time or require a basement full of jars. The shift towards downsizing and simplifying didn't just change how I garden. It completely changed how I thought about food. Instead of preserving massive amounts of produce that truly didn't fit our needs, I started focusing on eating seasonally and only preserving what actually made sense. Now let's talk about seasonal eating, because this is really the foundation of a low-stress, high-value garden. One of the biggest misconceptions is that preserving, whether it's canning or other methods, has to replace fresh eating. That's just not the case at all. Ideally, preserving is just a bridge that helps you fill the small gaps when certain crops aren't in season, or especially when you've harvested more than what you can eat right away. For example, there are a few things that I rarely preserve. Zucchini I might shred for freezer meal enchiladas, and that's if I have the extra time. Melons we usually eat fresh, as well as eggplant. Green beans we eat as much fresh as we can when they're in season, and then I leave the rest on the plants to dry so I can save the seeds, and if I have extras, I'll use them in chili or refried beans. I have frozen green beans before, but honestly the texture isn't that enjoyable, so I never did it again. Obviously I don't freeze lettuce because it's best eaten fresh, but I'm fortunate enough to grow it during most months of the year here in my climate. Corn is also something we canned before, but now we just enjoy it fresh during the summer. So the goal is to eat as many crops fresh as possible. This approach keeps your kitchen and your garden simple, reduces stress, and helps you focus on what really matters, and that's enjoying your food and growing it in a way that fits your life, not getting buried in endless preservation tasks. And this is exactly a portion of what I teach in my full course, the Intentional Garden System. In it, I guide you step by step into planning your garden for seasonal eating. The focus isn't on doing it all, it's doing the right things at the right time in the most efficient way, and you can start with my free training, which is linked below. The turning point for me was realizing that food preservation doesn't have to take up crazy amounts of time, and canning is only one method. And while it does work, it's not always the best fit for a busy life. There are options that are easier and safer without the worries about broken seals or spoilage that go along with canning, and flexible ones that fit small spaces and busy schedules, and totally aligned with seasonal eating where you preserve just enough and enjoy the rest fresh. Sometimes the best preservation is simply doing nothing and taking advantage of the soil as nature's refrigerator. Late crops like carrots and beets can stay in the ground after the first frosts and become sweeter after cold exposure. The only issue is they're tough to harvest if the ground freezes. Otherwise, if they do need to be harvested all at once, they can be kept well in damp sand in a cool spot or in fridge drawers. Potatoes and winter squash can last for months in the right cool, dry spot. I store my cured garlic in cotton mesh bags in my kitchen cupboard, and it keeps for nearly a year. The Farmer's Almanac online has lots of info on storing winter crops. Besides the long-term storage crops, freezing is probably my #1 easiest preservation method. Tomatoes are so easy to freeze whole in gallon bags and then pull out later to use in recipes or make sauce. When you put them in a sink full of water, the skins slip right off as they thaw. Peppers, I like to dice and freeze raw, and then they're ready to throw into chili and other recipes later on. Berries are also really easy, frozen in gallon bags to access for smoothies. Even greens like kale or spinach can be frozen for soups. Herbs can be chopped and added to ice cube trays with olive oil. Broccoli can be steamed and frozen in portions for side dishes. And if you have specific crops that you'd like to freeze, university extension offices have detailed but simple instructions on their websites that you can check out to ensure that you get the best results. Dehydrating is my next easiest method. Herbs dry beautifully and take almost no storage space. Hot peppers dehydrate well to make your own chili flakes or powder. The harvesting takes the most time, but the process itself is easy and very low effort. I keep 2 small dehydrators on my kitchen counter because I'm pretty much always dehydrating herbs from my garden. Fermenting is a fun and low effort method that I'd love to incorporate more, as I've only experimented with it a few times years ago. You just clean and cut up the veggies, pack them in a jar with salt brine, keep them submerged with a weight, and ferment at room temperature for several days to a few weeks, letting gas escape occasionally. When they're done, they can be transferred to the fridge to store for months. Cucumbers turn into the crunchiest pickles, and the same goes for carrots and radishes. You can even ferment garlic, which mellows the flavor and adds probiotics. A couple other easy preservation tips are herb vinegars and oils, and freezer jams that don't require canning. Vacuum sealing things like broccoli helps save space and preserve quality longer, but if you're going to eat it within a year, simple freezer bags work just fine. So the bottom line is, preserving your harvest doesn't have to mean burning out over boiling pots. By eating seasonally first and then using these simple methods just to bridge the gaps, we can enjoy fresher food, less stress, and a garden that actually supports our lives instead of overwhelming it. If you want to go deeper into how to plan smarter, grow the right crops, and keep gardening sustainable long-term, make sure you check out my free training linked below. It's going to give you the clarity and confidence to garden in a way that finally works for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.